I make good money, but I still feel broke. I don't understand where it all goes. It feels like as soon as I receive it, poof, it's gone. Does this sound familiar? I work with so many mompreneurs who make good money, six figures, and yet they have no idea where it went. Why? Because they're not tracking their finances, they're not paying attention to it, they're not giving every dollar a job before it even comes in. All businesses need two things: a business plan and a financial plan. If you're not sure where your money is going, then I'm inviting you to join my school community, The Smell of Money, where we dive into exactly where your money is going and we start to look at how you think and react to the money that you're receiving and paying out so that money flows in all ways, always. Join today. The link is in the comments.
If you're tired of feeling shame about past financial decisions, worried you'll never achieve financial stability, and ready for a clear plan to take control of your money and experience true financial freedom, you're in the right place. Hey, I'm Lisa, wealth activator, independent insurance broker, and your guide to rewriting your money story. I learned the secret to creating financial freedom and stability after divorce, and I'm ready to share it with you. If you're ready for steady, stress-free income, clarity with your money, and the confidence to spend without guilt, grab your favorite essential oil, take a deep breath, and let's sniff our way through the smell of money. I have talked to more people who are looking towards bankruptcy and debt relief companies to get out of debt that they've incurred. When you think about debt, it's just us borrowing from our future self. And why are we doing that? Is it because we don't have a financial strategy? Or is it because you don't have a relationship with your money? In my school community, The Smell of Money, we dive deep into this. Yes, using scent, aromatherapy to help break the patterns that create debt, create chaos in our finances. And we help resolve that issue simply by rethinking, positioning ourselves with our relationship with money. To join today, the link is in the comments. Today, we have a really cool guest who has had so much wonderful experiences, like life transforming experiences, from, moving from a different country, coming in here, going through a divorce, and creating a completely different lifestyle. Nandita Mahadevan came to the US at 21 and spent 25 years building a high achieving corporate life. Checking all the boxes, while listening out there are very familiar with these boxes. And in her 40s, I tell you all the time, something happens in our 40s. Perimenopause hit hard, bringing exhaustion, brain fog, and other symptoms that were dismissed with antidepressants. They think we're crazy and we're not. This is really, truly a thing. After years of questioning herself, she found the courage to speak up and discovered countless women experiencing the same thing. She left her corporate career to co-found Soul Women, a movement helping midlife women heal and thrive through functional medicine. And if you know my story, you guys know this is close to my heart because I've been working with functional medicine for the last 4 years after being postmenopausal since December of 2007, going through so many different life changes that, yes, affected my finances, because when your health is a mess, your wealth becomes a hot mess too. So thank you so much, Nandita, for being here. I'm really excited to hear your story. And I want to go back to 21. You made this huge shift coming to the United States, new town, that's a major life change. And just tell us what was that like? Like, were you completely broke? You had no job? You had to start from scratch?
Yeah, well, I came here to go to school, to go to grad school. And so never been to the United States, really, came from a relatively conservative upbringing to being plopped in here, really not knowing too many people. I had one friend and that was it. And my education was great. And I got my first job after kind of more or less graduating grad school, and it was $10 an hour. And I was so excited about it. I remember writing back to my mom, you convert I grew up in India. And so you convert the dollars to rupees. And it's like, oh, this is how much money I'm making. I'm so rich. But it was so exciting to actually make my own money for the first time and be able to afford my $300 a month room in, Philadelphia. It was great. It was
It'd be
so
awesome if room
exciting.
for still $300 a month.
It was a hole in the wall with rats running around, so it was nothing to write home about, but it was what I could do
It's
at
like
that point, and I
Cinderella
was
with the
proud.
rats. You just become friends with them. Philadelphia was a great place. The Philly steak sandwiches, the city of love, that was a good place to end up. So what happened? You started, you started making your own money. How were you with managing that money? Was it like a hoarder, a spender?
Well, so I grew up with this story. I think a lot of us grow up with, which is like money doesn't grow on trees, and you've got to really work so hard to make your money. And at the same time, nobody ever taught me what to do with my money. Nobody taught me how to invest and save or how do you grow your wealth. There was no education that was given to me. And so when I first started, actually I was now a grad school, an MBA, and I started working. The first salary I got was $27,000. And to me, who didn't know any different, I was like, hey, this is a good amount of money. Now, when you think back, it was like nothing, but I didn't know any different. And now that I look back, I also didn't value myself enough to say, no, that's not what I deserve. I deserve probably 3 times as much. But I took it and I was happy and more or less spent all of it. And at that point in time, when you come to the United States, you also you have a social security number, but you don't have any credit. So, but if you want a credit card, you need to show that you have credit. So what do you do then? Because I didn't have any credit. So you pay $500 and you get a debit card and you've got to build your credit history. And so you've almost got to go into debt for a substantial amount of time to build that credit history to now get a credit card. Such a messed up system, I think. It's encouraging you to go into debt to show them that you can work with money responsibly enough for us to now give you a credit card. But yeah, I got married and I had my ex-husband was an attorney and brought home, a lot of money, and we spent it all. We lived life to the fullest, didn't know what it meant to save, spent all of it. Then this was our first time paying taxes as well. And we didn't know that my ex filled out a tax form incorrectly, and then come a year around and we owed the IRS, I don't know, $60,000, and we had no money in our bank accounts to pay the IRS. It's been a big learning lesson at the beginning when we came, and very quickly we realized what to do and what not to do. But yeah, those stories that you're raised with, as far as how money doesn't grow on trees, the scarcity concept is so ingrained in our DNA. It's interesting how hard it is to change that story. You've got to go through a series of hardships and live life and experience it to come out the other side.
Yeah, we always like to say you have to hit rock bottom before you rise to the top. We get used to these patterns, and, especially when we create debt, we're borrowing from our future self, but we're trying to soothe something. I know when I created debt twice in my life, it was to fill a void, to cover up shame and guilt from my past choices. And, I've been in finance and insurance since 1987. And I thought, I know how to manage money. Like, what is wrong with me? Why am I addicted to, these 0% credit cards and racking up all of this debt and going into this, deficit every single month, making good money, but not knowing where it is. And it's because we're trying to fill a void. It's like, it's not a money management problem. It's a money relationship problem. And that's we focus
Yeah.
on in my community, the smell of money. When you think about our minds, like you're all into the functional medicine, and we're going to dive deep into that because I know it's so important to get to the root cause, and our thoughts are the most powerful tool we have in whatever we think is true, because our mind doesn't know the difference. Our subconscious doesn't know the difference. It just knows we tell it to do something and it does it. It's very obedient. And so much of what we do is automatic. Like we do it like breathing or blinking our eyes. There's no thought process whatsoever. And then we end up at the end of the day beating ourselves up. The mirror talk that we do in my program kind of reverses all that negative talk. We're so used to beating ourselves up and raising the bar and telling ourselves that we're no good. And then we expect other people to lift us up and give us kudos and, invest in our businesses when we don't even believe in investing in ourselves. So have you experienced something like that? And what was that like for you?
Yeah. As you're talking, I feel like this is probably a story a lot of us have lived. When I was making 27,000, I was just about barely making enough to sustain. And then when I climbed the corporate ladder and I was making multiple six figures, it was still barely enough for me to sustain. It's almost like your standard of living goes up, and it's this, you talk about the void that you're trying to fill, which is so true. In my case, it was all status and showing the world, what success looks like. And so what did I do when I was making multiple figures? I spent it on all of these external things that I did not need to, but it was proving to everybody else that look where I am, look how successful I am, putting my kids in private school. Do they have to go to private school? No, but that's what all my friends were doing. And so I did it to remain in that circle. And you kind of get lost along the way. It's like, who are you? What is your true identity? It's almost you're mirroring all the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so switching that again, you have to like hit some kind of a pause button and probably hit rock bottom before you actually switch that around.
And that's so true. And I know a lot of our listeners can connect with that thought, because you're keeping up with, the phrase, you're keeping up with the Joneses. Like, oh, well, my circle of friends, this is what they do. We have to send our kids to private school. We have to do that. And I'm glad you mentioned that the more money you made, the more you spent. Because that's exactly what happens when we don't have a money spending plan. We end up making more money and still not having enough because we have no idea where it's going. And we actually change our lifestyle to accommodate that increase. And
Yeah.
you had said earlier, you're not given an education about finances. So we're
Right.
expected to go into the workforce. I mean, some people, I started working when I was 11 years old. It's here, you get your money. And in my household, I was taught money at a very young age. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and my grandmother made it a point to teach me when I was 7 years old about, saving and spending and giving.
Yeah.
And so I always knew it, but the financial literacy, like there was no explanation as to why you save and then what happens with the money that you save and investments. And actually, when I was in junior high, I had a really good English teacher that taught us how to read the stock market for the entire year. We had to pick 3 stocks and track them and learn how, how they fluctuated and what was good investments and what wasn't. And most people don't get that. And I think that just went above and beyond for his students. But I just remember falling in love with money and finances and thinking, wow, this is really cool. And so in high school, I chose a business path all on finances. I learned how to fill out tax forms and how to set up business financial plans and look at, self-employment income versus S Corp and C Corp. And
Oh
that's
my.
just it was amazing. So I just assumed if everybody knew that because I knew it. It's not true.
Yeah.
That's why I do what I do today. And I'm shocked at how many people will start a business without a business plan. Like I just, onboarded 2 new clients last week. Neither one of them have a business plan. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
Yeah.
you cannot go past step 1 until you get a business plan.
Yeah.
You need a financial plan and a business plan in order to be able to be successful. And everybody says they want to make all this money, and then they make it and they don't have a dime to show for it.
Right.
So what was the major thing what was like your pivotal moment where you just finally said, this is it, I'm done. You were spending all this money, you were, married, your husband had a lot of money, but what was that breaking point that just said, you know what, we can't do this anymore and I'm done? And then you ended up leaving, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we made a lot of money and we spent it all and lived in debt, even though we were making multiple 6 figures. And just really irresponsible financial decisions. And at some point in time, it got too much. And yes, we separated. We have a very good relationship, but we did separate. And it really comes down to, I wish as when we were growing up, we were given more financial education. I wish we were taught the importance of saving and the discipline that comes with it. And it's sad, but even in schools nowadays, kids are not taught that, and so it's probably the most important thing is outside of history and geography and all of these things that are so important. How is financial literacy not an important part of the education system right now? And how is it not part of what we as parents need to be teaching our kids to do? Be able to put money aside and look at stocks. I mean, the fact that you had it in school and your teachers actually took the time, that's incredible. I love that. What an incredible
Yeah.
foundation to have been given. But as far as what was my moment, when did I hit rock bottom? I would probably say I'd say 4 years ago when everything hit rock bottom. My health kind of took a nosedive. My marriage did, and my life kind of fell apart. We were in California at that point in time. And it really made me step back and evaluate what I why I was making money and had nothing to show for it outside of all of the frivolous fancy bags and shoes. And it really came down to my priorities. It came down to my value. Like, was I valuing myself versus everybody else's opinion? And the focus that I had, I would spend, I think my entire life, or at least the last 25 years, I've kind of focused on scarcity and so much fear around money and not having enough and not having enough to pay my bills. It would keep me up at night. And then I'd wake up in the morning and make stupid choices. So it's like, how is that going to shift? So it was really me shifting my mindset and recognizing that focusing on abundance and really having some kind of structure to saving, putting money aside, the importance of the different buckets that you put money into, prioritizing, family vacations versus fancy shoes and bags. Like, what are the important things in your life that truly bring you joy? And then putting money into those buckets. Giving back. It's probably the biggest lesson that I learned is when you focus out, when you give back, the world gives to you. And so that again is, you talk about abundance, instead of where you put your focus, where you put your energy, that's what you attract. And so when you're constantly worried about paying your bills and you're worried about debt and you go to bed thinking about, oh my God, I'm not going to have money. Yeah, you're not going to have money. You're going to wake up and you're going to make stupid choices and you're not going to have money. And once you switch that conversation to, I have enough and I'm going to make wise choices. And the more I give, the more I get. But I'm spending consciously and I'm spending in the areas that truly matter to me and bring me joy. I value myself enough to invest in things that make me more confident, education and self-help and, leadership coaching that make me a better human being, make me a person that's allowed to elevate my level of service to the world, then the world just gives back. That took it took some learning and it took some hard knocks along the way to get there. Yeah, I'm grateful for all of it because, gosh, it taught me so much. And I'm grateful to be here and be able to share this with the rest of my world and my kids to show them, the things that I did and show them not to do certain things.
It's such a beautiful journey, isn't it? And knowing like where you've been, how far you've come, and now you're able to be in a position to turn around and help others in a way that you love, that's aligned with your gifts and talents. So tell us how you got into the functional medicine part of it and what made you did a complete career shift,
Well,
right?
I've been in functional medicine for about 20 years, mostly in leadership positions. And I've worked and grown small companies, scaled them to large companies. So I've been in C-suite level roles for a good portion of my career. And about 8 months ago, I decided to quit my job and start my own company, which was, you talk about money lessons. Oh my God, fear that comes with somebody who has always craved financial stability and not had it, to then say, okay, I'm going to give up this cushy, multiple six-figure job to now start my own company and pull from my savings, can be frightening, but it's been incredible. It's been the most freeing, liberating experience I've had. And it's because I coupled that move with the shift in my stories, right? That come with, I let go of the scarcity conversations and really have taken on more of the abundance mindset. And it shows because the company has gained so much momentum in such a short period of time, and I'm attracting exactly what I want. Amazing.
And that's really important because you've in alignment. And when you step into alignment, it all just flows naturally. And then money comes in all ways, all ways. And a lot of people out there listening miss that part. They think, oh, I'm just gonna, do this business, and they go after the get rich quick schemes that, I'm gonna pick on digital marketers. I can't help myself. You know who you are. But you think, oh, I'm going to make this, $10,000 thing. And you have no idea what the heck you're doing. You completely rely on this one thing. And then you get frustrated because it didn't work. Well, because it's not in alignment. All the programs out there work. But if it's not in alignment, if you don't know what you love and you've spent most of your life beating yourself up and not really paying attention to how you thrive and what brings you joy, you have that you have a misconnection. And I know because I went through that. I started off as a post-abortion coach and using my aromatherapy to help women heal of that shame and guilt. And I didn't really enjoy it. And then I moved on to client attraction coaching and, didn't like that and built out MLM teams and, did all kinds of crazy things. And it's like I had a VIP day with my coach at the time. And she's like, what do you love to do? I go, I love dating money. I love talking about money and finances. I can talk for hours about that. And every time I get on a call with one of my clients, they ask me about money. She says, well, why aren't you teaching about money? Well, because of my own shame and guilt of carrying $100,000 worth of debt. Who
Yeah.
was I? I wasn't worthy. So every day I had this conversation with myself, like getting this tug to teach on money. It'd be like, well, no, you're not good with money. Money burns a hole in your pocket. You're just not a good person to teach on money. And it's just like my coach helped me to see, like,
Exactly.
no, you're
Yep.
perfect because you've been through it. And when I had actually paid off my $100,000 worth of debt in 6 months and realized it had nothing to do with the way I was managing money, but everything to do with how I felt about myself, the low self-esteem, self-confidence, going through the change of life and not really understanding it and not getting any support from the doctors or anything. My body changed and the way I thought, like, you said, and the brain fog is really big. And when you're not clear on your path, I think your health gets worse. And this happens in all ages. I was talking to one of my clients in The Smell of Money and young adults going through anxiety and ending up with, heart palpitations, asthma attacks. This is our body crying out saying, listen, you're not in alignment. So how specifically do you help women? Tell us about Soul Woman and
Yeah.
all the
Soul
things.
Women was really put together for me. I was that woman who needed the help, who did not get it. And then I had to find what I needed. I needed to find kind of my recipe. And when I did, my life completely transformed. And I did not want any other woman having to walk that journey on their own. And so that's why I put it together. It's really, Women is a company that's built to empower and educate women as they go through this transition. When you transition 35 to 40-ish, perimenopause, menopause, it's not just, yes, your health goes through all of these changes because of your hormone. You have mood swings, you put on weight all of a sudden, you are eating just as well as you did, and you're working out just as hard as you did, but you've got this belly weight that will not budge for no reason. You forget you were this type A executive who had all of these balls that you could hold up in the air, and now you're dropping them all over. You have no idea why. You have hot flashes, libido goes out the window. It's like, you stand there wondering, who the heck are you? And so, yes, all of these body changes happen, but then there's also an identity shift that happens. You stand there thinking, who am I if I'm not this badass C-suite executive who did all of these things so well? If I was not this super mom who did all of these things so well, and now I'm no longer that person because of my brain fog and because so your identity goes through a shift. Also, you have generally women at this age have teenagers who are going through their set of hormonal changes. And so imagine that household where you've got, moody teens and you have a mom who's going through her stuff. They also don't need you as much. So if you're no longer so-and-so's mom, who are you then? You've spent all these years being, for me, it was like Kyla and Sharv's mom, and now they don't need me as much. And so I'm no longer as needed as much as a mom. I'm no longer this badass C-suite executive who never dropped a ball. I'm dropping balls now. I forgot to pick my kids up from an activity. Oh my God, I'm not the super mom that I was. What do you do? And so switching your mindset to understand that once you get your hormones balanced, a lot of the moodiness and brain fog goes away, your weight goes away, but also who are you as a human being? What are you passionate about now that you're no longer needed as a mom? What drives you internally, not externally, not because I want to show the world my fancy shoes and my bag and the big house that I live in. What brings me joy? And finding that purpose and really getting behind it, I think that's the money will come. Once you're in alignment with true purpose and walking that path, the money will come. And I have to say that there was this one intuitive reader that we went to, and my husband and I were together. My ex-husband is brilliant. He's an entrepreneur and is so good at so many things that he didn't know what to focus on. And sometimes I think we have, people like this who are like, oh, the next shiny ball, which is the next shiny ball that I run after. And this intuitive reader said to me, he was like, you've got to think the universe is like a parent. If a parent said to you, what do you want for your birthday? And you said, I think I want a guitar or maybe a football. Or you know what? There's this really, I think I want a puppy instead. Also, I've been really interested in getting acting classes. At this point, your mom is sitting there thinking, I really don't know what to get you. Versus if you sat down with yourself and you said, what do I love? I am so passionate about this one thing. Universe, I want a puppy. Or mom, I want a puppy. Guess what you're going to get for your birthday? You're going to get a puppy. So sit down, and I think finding clarity around what you're so excited about that wakes you up in the morning and you can get behind is so important, because the universe will have your back and the money will come.
Mm-hmm. And that is going to make an excellent reel. It's true. See, that's facts. Everyone listening, that is facts. And I can't stress that enough. And I'm so glad you shared that specifically, and you've experienced that, and now you're helping women do that as well. So thank you for finally stepping into your gifts and talents and showing up in alignment for yourself so that you can turn around and help others do the same. Tell us, what's the best way for our audience to connect with you and learn more about how you help?
You can email me at hello, HELLO, at Soul Women, SOLWOMEN.com. You can go to my website, soulwomen.com. We're also on Instagram. It's the THE Soul, SOLWOMEN. That's the handle.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story, and for just offering some wonderful advice financially and personally,
Yes.
spiritually, guidance that we all can use. So for those of you who are listening, please check the show notes, connect with Soul Women, get the support that you need, know that you're not alone. And I know sometimes it's like, oh, I don't know anything about finances, I'm too ashamed to ask. You're not alone. 99% of the people don't know. So you need to connect and find out, how do I get the support? And if you're someone who's going through perimenopause or menopause and you're like, oh my goodness, is there anybody else out there? Yes, you are not crazy. These things do happen, and there is relief, there is support naturally, so that you can get healing, you can start to clear up that brain fog and start to show up for yourself using your gifts and talents in alignment with absolutely what you love. So money does come in always, always, because remember, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it. Hey, mompreneurs, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please follow the show and share it with a friend who's rebuilding her finances after divorce. No spreadsheets, no restrictive budgets, only confidence to build financial freedom. Also, please drop a quick 5-star review so more moms starting over can find this. It lights me up to know this podcast is helping you. Inhale confidence, exhale scarcity. I'll meet you back on Tuesday for another episode. It doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it.